Today I'm going to show you the 5 best vehicle fast chargers on the market, ranging from $149 to $399. The DJI 1 kilowatt super fast car charger. A standout for high input and charging speeds that double the competition. It quite literally stands out from the rest with a larger and wider size, but shining brighter is its ability for automatic reverse charging to keep your vehicle battery equally topped off. The Pecron 500 watt smart car charger. While it may be the lowest speed charging, it also is the cheapest of the competitors today, but the lack of ranges and options for charging input may make it vulnerable. The Bluetti Charger 1. It's coming in strong with the ability to charge 95% of other brands of power stations. However, it falls short by using the solar port of a power station, limiting your charging options overall, so only time will tell how it holds up in the ring. The EcoFlow 800 watt alternator charger. It receives a lot of support for its higher charging speeds at 800 watts, however it gets a lot of traction for not having an auto on and off feature and only working with EcoFlow power stations. However, the 3-in-1 battery charging solutions that help charge your vehicle's battery bring it back in the competition and has our attention. And finally, the ETaker Fast Charger Fleet 1000. Entering the ring, weighing in at 4 pounds 13 ounces, it has been held back before for its ability to only have 3 charging settings and only working with other ETaker power stations, but it is making a steady comeback by allowing you to charge both from solar and alternator simultaneously. So you are in for a heated showdown here today and the ultimate battle to find the world's best vehicle fast charger. But first, be sure to hit the subscribe button if you like this video. It really helps support the channel, but also lets me know what kind of videos you guys want to see more of. Also, the DJI does have 2 fast car chargers. One is a 1 kilowatt car charger and the other is a 1.8 kilowatt solar and car charging combo. On this chart, I'll just be comparing the car charger standalone version. Also, this morning I learned that ETaker is coming out with a new edition as well. And ETaker's new version is going to be 2 kilowatt hours, and that will be double anything on this list. So I'll be briefly mentioning that one as well. So now let's jump right into these different categories we'll be discussing today, and I'm going to break down each of them and what they mean and why they're important as we go. But we're going to be starting with charging power. We'll be discussing price, charging time with and without these devices, input voltage range, output voltage range, fuse rated current, operating temperature, warranty length, size and weight, solar input capabilities, app connection and review, automatic start and turn off, reviews and customer service ratings, installation process and difficulty rating, included battery and system protections, reverse charging capabilities, and we'll finish off with some other features worth mentioning that just didn't fit into any of those previous categories. And I think the first step you should do right now before even considering a fast charger any further is to look up how many amps your vehicle alternator's capacity is. This is for not only your physical safety, but also the safety of your vehicle. And it's going to help you know how much power your vehicle is even capable of harnessing. With that said, I also want to lead with some disclaimers on any fast car chargers, including the ones on this list. They can lead to an increase in fuel consumption and lower your miles per gallon and just overall fuel efficiency because of the higher load it's putting on your alternator. It also can lead to a heavier usage of your car's battery, which can deplete the battery's life cycles faster. And there were just a few other concerns like that became present if you're constantly using these on their max power, which I saw a lot of concerns in like forums and comment sections and reviews. But however, I will say, I was looking at one of these manufacturers' websites, and they said something very contrary. So on EcoFlow's website, I'm going to read you some exact quotes. It says, "Will this product damage the alternator starter battery or affect the overall lifespan of the vehicle?" And they said, no, the 800 watt alternator charging's charging logic does not rigidly apply 800 watts. Instead, it depends on the power surplus of the car's alternator. It ensures the alternator is not overloaded, allowing up to a maximum of 800 watts without harming the car's battery. They also had the question, will this product consume more fuel, example, affect gas mileage when used? And they said the product uses the electricity generated by the car's alternator. Even if all the electrical devices inside the car are turned off, the alternator still generates electricity while the car is running. The alternator charger utilizes the surplus electricity generated by the car's alternator and stores it in a portable power station through the charger. The impact on fuel consumption is very minimal. But I also found this very eerily worded question: will installing an alternator charger affect my car's warranty? And they said, please confirm with your vehicle manufacturer regarding vehicle warranty issues. That does not sound promising at all. But I don't know, because it seems like people in comment sections that are being real and authentic and aren't making any money are saying that it could hurt your vehicle. But the manufacturers who are making money are saying, no, don't worry about it. It's going to be totally fine. So do with all that information as you please, is all I'm saying. Our first category is going to be how many watts it can deliver from the vehicle's alternator, which if you're not familiar is just a fancy way of saying how fast it can charge your power station. So the watts listed here from the manufacturer's specs are all under full power charging, and that charging power is directly related to the car's generator's current and operating condition. So all of that basically to say, if you're not pulling the full wattage at all times, there's nothing wrong with the device. It's just pulling in relation to your vehicle's state of charge, but it is 100% possible and can and will often happen that you are pulling that maximum power. You can also see on this chart, I wrote in very tiny font what those new additions are underneath the DJI and the ETaker. The new ETaker edition I was talking about earlier that hasn't been released yet is actually going to be 1 kilowatt hour by alternator and 1 kilowatt hour by solar, which is going to be insane and beat out every other option on this list easily. And the new DJI does have more solar power, but they're compromising on car charging. So I think in between those two to figure out which one is best, it's a matter of if you value alternator charging or solar charging more. And one of the first immediate things I want to say to you when showing you these numbers is that, first off, a big reason I recommended checking your vehicle's alternator capacities is it affects how you look at these numbers. Just because the DJI can power at 1,000 watt hours does not mean your alternator can or should take that on a consistent basis. And a lot of these actually have different levels you can choose from, so you're not always charging at these max capacities. When we get to the output voltage range, we will go over what those different sections are, but just for now, no, you don't always have to only charge at that max capacity. Overall, these are all really great improvements from the typical alternator charging option of your vehicle's cigarette lighter. That only charges at 10 to 15 amps or 120 to 180 watts. And that's really only intended to be charging like a GPS or a phone or small devices. And that's why it can take forever for your power station to charge through that route. But once you add these fast chargers, those numbers become life-changing and now average about 2 hours. And the DJI and solar combo together can actually charge in 40 minutes if they're both at full power. So again, these stats are only if your vehicle is at the max setting for that car charger and your vehicle's battery has the full capability and power to be able to push your alternator to have that excess power. So just keep that in mind. So according to their website stats, 500 watts will charge in 3 to 3.5 hours, 800 watts will charge in 1.3 hours, and 1 kilowatt will charge in 78 minutes. Next is one of the most asked about sections, which is price. And the losers in this category are going to be EcoFlow at the high end of $400 and DJI at $300, while the winners are Pecron at $150 and the ETaker at $217. And interestingly, once you break down this chart even further, you can see the DJI and the Pecron, even though they're on two different spectrums of overall price, they're actually the same price per watt of charging. And no matter how you slice it, the EcoFlow is just grossly overpriced, and I really don't understand why. And just to clarify these ETaker numbers before we move on, it's 43 cents per watt if you only include the alternator charging and 22 cents per watt if you include solar. But of course, that doesn't include the actual solar panels or the mounting accessories or just other things like that. So I wasn't sure how to write that, so I wrote both down. I'm an overthinker and an overdoer, and I'm very particular. Can you tell I'm a Ravenclaw? Does that come out? Does this chart make it very obvious I'm a Ravenclaw? Also, something else to consider in price is if you want one of these on this list and they only work with specific power stations, then you're gonna have to buy that corresponding power station unless you already own it. So if you already own one brand of power station, it may be, leaning you in that direction to get that corresponding car charger then. And later on in this video, we will go over which ones work with which power stations. But for now, let's look at input and output voltage range as well as fuse rated current. Blech. Something I want to note about these three categories is that the Bluetti is the only one with a circuit breaker and not a fuse. So that means if you blow a fuse, you don't need to reset and replace the whole thing. It's going to be very easy to just use the switch and reset it and reuse it. However, hopefully, you aren't blowing fuses often, so hopefully that's not a big issue, is how I would hope that works out. However, Bluetti did really show and encourage and try to like promote that. So we'll see. I am installing one of these in my vehicle at the end of this video. I partly made this trying to decide which one I wanted to put in my vehicle and which one we would put in my mom's future RV and etc. And now I have a lot of them. Another note I want to talk about is in this category, the bottom numbers in the output voltage category, and they tell you what you can set that device at when it pulls power from your vehicle's alternator. So DJI is set at 1 watt intervals, so you can literally choose anything up to 1000 watts on the app. Pecron is much more selective with just 6 settings that are all written in volts, and their customer service sent me this sheet that explains you must find the right voltage for your vehicle and choose that setting, which will help it know when to auto start and when to turn off when your vehicle is off. And annoyingly, that is all to be done with a tiny screwdriver. Next, for Bluetti, you can change the voltage in the app by 0.1 intervals, anywhere from 15 to 56 volts. With the EcoFlow, it gives you 50 watt intervals between 100 and 800 watts that you can also change on the app. And finally, the ETaker only has 3 settings, which you can change with a button on the side of the device for 300, 400, and 500 watt outputs. Moving on to our second page of charts, all of these except the Pecron and the ETaker have apps. Regarding operating temperatures, DJI is clearly having a little bit of struggles and rough temperatures, more so than the others, but Bluetti and EcoFlow are actually doing really well here, which surprises me because EcoFlow has what they call natural cooling instead of fans, which you can see on the device, there's no fans anywhere. So I really don't know how they're naturally cooling it. They just want it to cool itself. It does not seem great. And you would think because of that feature, because it's just a literal brick, it would have a hard time cooling and have a harder time in bigger temperatures, but according to the company, apparently not. So these are all 2-year warranties except the Pecron and the ETaker. Next, let's take a visual look at the size and weight comparatively of these devices. In the weight column, the top red number is the weight I personally collected for just the fast charger alone, and the bottom red number is the number including all of the needed accessories like wires and fuses. Next is whether or not the device hinders the solar input abilities of the power station by using the same port the solar panels need. I've seen this as a really big complaint in reviews, not because people are worried they need to double charge and get more power, but because people don't want to have to plug and unplug to switch between charging by solar and then charging by alternator every single time they drive. But note, this won't matter as much if you just don't charge your power station by solar panels, which I don't, so it wouldn't really be an issue to me. So again, it's about knowing what you need personally. So our first option here is DJI, which does use the same port as solar, which means you would have to switch out those cords. However, the reason that it's a half check mark is because they do have that second device that is solar and car charging. So for just an additional $20, you can upgrade to that device that does allow the hybrid charging. Pecron is a little bit more complicated because it uses Anderson connectors, so it depends on which Anderson connection and power station you're using. But yes, it does plug into the Pecron solar port, but I think some of the power stations have 2. I would just say look at your exact power station and know what kind of cord that's going into, but it seems like it will not be able to do both. Bluetti also does not allow simultaneous solar charging, so it would need to be plugged in and unplugged each time, which was one of their biggest complaints in their reviews. For EcoFlow, they do not use the solar port, so you wouldn't need to plug and unplug, but something we're going to talk about in just a minute is you will have to turn it on and off each time you turn your vehicle on and off. So it's a little bit of pick your poison because Bluetti, you're plugging and unplugging just for your solar panel use, but EcoFlow, you're turning it on and off just to use it. So as Taylor Swift would say, pick your poison, babe, it's poison either way. And finally, the ETaker does have solar and car charging abilities, both in the same device. Next is another huge section, which I would say is one of the categories that matters the most to me when picking out which one I'll be putting in my own vehicle, because I own numerous brands of power stations, and this is discussing which power stations are compatible and will work with each device. The DJI fast charger only works with the DJI Power 1000. The Pecron fast charger works with any power station with a compatible voltage. The Bluetti works with 95% of power stations on the market. EcoFlow works with only a few of their own models. Here's the list next to how long it would take each one to charge from 0 to 100%. It doesn't even include the Delta 3 or their River series at all, which is disappointing. Another note with the EcoFlow is that if you want to use it with the Delta Pro series, you're going to have to buy an additional $69 adapter just to make this work. Also, this is what their website and their charts and their resellers say. But then I messaged customer service and I was like, hey, would this work with the River series? And they said yes. So that was confusing. And then I messaged about the Delta 3 and they also said yes. And finally, the ETaker fast charger, which they say only works with other ETaker power stations. Their newer version will work with all of them according to their marketing. Moving on to our next category, does the system automatically turn on and off? The only option here that does not automatically shut off when you turn your vehicle off and stop pulling power from your alternator is going to be the EcoFlow, and it is easily their biggest complaint in their reviews. But I also want to point out this one review I found on the Pecron website. I'm not sure how much truth is behind it, but it seems like at least a red flag to be aware of. Stuff the manual does not tell you, but customer service told me. We don't recommend using it when you are not driving, as this tends to drain the car's power. It's also not recommended to turn on the machine before the car ignites. The red light blinking 3 times means the battery voltage is too low, so it stops charging. 2 blinks means the input current is too high. Overcurrent protection may happen when the car charger switches on when the car is turned on. So if you do go with Pecron, I would just highly recommend reading the sheet specifically to make sure you get it set up right. Our next category is going to be customer service. I actually added this category based on your guys' comments in previous videos and just seeing how important it is to be able to contact customer service if something does go wrong. So I actually went through and tested out all of these different customer service options from each of these brands because I actually needed to use them over the last few weeks. And DJI had extremely fast customer service responses. I liked their chat feature on their website, and they have been really just above and beyond with their helpfulness. But do you know why I know that? It's because I needed to use them the most, not for the fast car charger, but for their dang dongle upgrade thing, whatever they want to call it. And it took me hours to get it in, and it felt like I was downloading a scam on my computer, and I didn't like it. And you do need that in order to use this, I believe. And it just drove me insane. It actually took me 2 days because I actually had to take a break and stop because I was seeing red. So I had to use them a lot, but they were extremely helpful with step by step. They were always available, sending back immediate responses. That's likely because they're not just a fast charger or portable power station company, but they're much bigger and they're, worldwide, and they do cameras and other things as well, which is probably why they're already so set up with that so well. However, I hated that, and I wish they would not have gone with that path of having to get upgrades on your power station, but I digress.
I'm sitting there and you say dongle, and I always did the Beavis, but she's a dongle.
Who are Beavis and Butthead?
I refuse.
You're creating a work environment.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Now you step, see?
Nope, no, we're done. We're done. That's enough of that. For Pecron, I actually messaged their customer service, and they only ever would just respond back at midnight because they're located on the other side of the continent, I believe. I'm on the eastern coast of America, but I'll give them 3 stars. They've been very helpful. They have to take 24 hours to respond. So I really liked having DJI give me immediate responses. Bluetti, I did wish had an online chat feature on their website like the rest, but instead they send it to your email and then they respond in the emails instead. It also took them 2 days to reply instead of 1 like the rest. It's just basically what we're saying is DJI gave me high standards and the rest aren't living up to that. ETaker also took about 24 hours to respond, but they've been pretty helpful as well answering questions. And like Pecron, they really were only answering at crazy hours of the night. I wasn't really able to test out things like how will they respond to the usage of their warranty or if things really go wrong and it's not working. But just as far as asking them questions for install or setup, they were all pretty responsive and 24-hour responses. So now we're actually going to install each of these devices and do some bench testing and discuss the install difficulty. Let's start with the EcoFlow. This is the mounting bracket it comes with, and it screws into the back of the device, and then I used 2 screws to mount it to the box. It comes with 2 cords to go from the fast charger in 2 directions into your vehicle battery and into your power station. This was the first cord, and I had to install the smaller wire into the fuse, and the fuse is the metal piece with green in between the 2 wires, so it really wouldn't be too hard to replace if anything ever went wrong. I used a small wrench to connect the wires and then screwed them into my 12-volt battery, which represents your vehicle's battery. The second wire plugs into the power station pretty simple. This plug is different than the other brands because the others tend to also be wires, but I would say this is one of the most secure connections. In order to get it back out, they actually give you a small tool you have to shove above it and unlock it. Also, this is the charger that does not auto turn on and off, so this is the off button that you have directly on it, or you could use the app. The app is also how you would be able to switch between the 3 charging modes to have your power station send charge back to your vehicle's battery. Next is the Pecron. They didn't include screws to install it with, so I had to find my own, and their cord that goes into the power station comes with an Anderson connector, so you have to have those corresponding cords. And this is the Pecron E1500. It does have 2 connectors, and I made sure to put it in the one with the 700 watt max, not the one with the 100 watt max. For the wire that goes into the vehicle battery, their fuse already came installed to the rest of the wire, so that was one less step for the install, and then that plugged right into the car charger. I pressed the on button and a green light went on indicating it was charging, and here's another image of where you can change the voltage, as this one has no app and only 6 settings. Also, I tested this charger on other power stations, and it did indeed work with both my EcoFlow Delta 2 and my Anker C1000. Next is the ETaker, and the mounting was pretty standard, and it also came with 2 cords, and I did need to install the fuse to the rest of the wire for this one as well before installing it into the vehicle battery. I actually don't own an ETaker battery, so I had to test this one out on an Anker power station, even though it was advertised to only work on ETaker batteries, so I was just hoping nothing would blow up while I was testing this, and it didn't, and everything charged well. To change the charging speed or input watts, there's a button on the side you have to just hold until it flashes, and then let it land on your choice. Next is the DJI 1 kilowatt fast charger, and the install and mounting was pretty standard up until when I screwed the wires into the system. These wires have covers and caps, which I think is a really nice professional touch, which just makes these wires not only look more high quality, but help keep the connection clean over time. And then the other side of the wire plugs directly into the SDC port on the power station, and then with the push of a button it turned on, and they also have a button on the side to do reverse charging back into the battery, or you can use the app. And finally is the Bluetti Charger one, which is actually quite different in a few ways from the other options, starting with the use of a circuit breaker over a fuse on the wire. Also, their wires clamp into their system. To attach these wires, they provide an Allen wrench to loosen a screw and stick the wire into the charger, then re-screw it back in tight onto that wire. And then I repeated that on the other side of the wire going into the 12-volt battery as well, and then plugged the Anderson connectors into each with the wire I got from the Bluetti AC180. And to finish this out, I tested the charger not only on my Bluetti AC180, but also on my EcoFlow Delta 2, my Anker C1000, and the Pecron 1500, and they all worked very well. A big complaint that I noticed across the board for all of these was a discussion on the wire just wasn't long enough when you're running that wire from the charger to your power station. They were all 16 feet, and this was a very just largely discussed complaint. If you're installing this in a car, you're probably going to be fine. But if you have a camper van and you want to install it in the front of your camper where your car battery is, back to the back of your vehicle, it's not going to be long enough in most cases. However, you actually can rewire it yourself or buy a longer wire from Amazon, like one of these. But just remember, the longer wire you get, you're going to need to account for voltage drop, so just make sure to size that wire correctly. I did see someone recommending 6-gauge wire for sizing up. Also, I will link the article I wrote that coincides with this video on my website in the description. That has all of the charts and the explanations for everyone who just consumes information better in the written form. Also, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button. It greatly helps support the channel. So our next category here is what protections does each device have in place to protect your vehicle? I won't read them all out loud because there's a lot of them, but just note that some have more than others because some have different abilities, including reverse charging. Reverse charging is when your device can not only charge your power station, but also your vehicle's battery. For the DJI fast charger, if you also have that adapter power dongle that I hated installing, you can reverse charge your car's battery to prevent battery drain. The automatic bidirectional charging is where it automatically detects the voltage of your car battery if it's below a threshold. It'll then switch from charging the power station to charging the car battery, and when it reaches a certain voltage, it will automatically switch back to charge the power station, and that's all going to be controlled by the DJI Home app. The Pecron does not have any of those features, and neither does the Bluetti. However, I was speaking to the Bluetti customer service team, and they were saying that if you wanted to, you could get a lead-acid battery charging cable, and that would actually do the job to charge the power station alone, which is interesting. Next is the EcoFlow, and it's a 3-in-1 system because it has 3 total modes. First is going to be the charging mode, and this is when it uses the car's alternator to refuel your portable power station. Next is the reverse charging mode, which is when it recharges your vehicle starter battery using your portable power station. And finally is the battery maintenance mode, which extends your vehicle starter battery or RV house battery life by using a lower electrical current. And finally is the ETaker, and their current model does not support reverse charging, but their newer model will. And with that, it is finally time to wrap this up and come to the conclusion of this video. And I really want you to look at these categories that we discussed and determine which are important to you and your application. So if you think you want the reverse charging aspect, then you should choose the DJI or the EcoFlow. If you value not having to turn your system on and off each time you drive, then just don't choose the EcoFlow. If you want to be able to charge by solar and your alternator at the same time and not have to plug and unplug, then choose anything but the Bluetti or the Pecron, depending on which power station you have. If you're on a tight budget, then Pecron is cheaper, but if you're looking to get the most power per cost, then DJI is equally as well priced, even though it is a higher total cost. If your alternator can't handle charging above 500 watts, then paying more for that 1 kilowatt just really isn't necessary. If you want to be able to use a wide variety of power stations and not only that brand's power stations, then choose Bluetti or choose Pecron. So know what you need from the system and then choose accordingly. With that said, there is a winner and a loser of each of these categories, and let's go over that now. So after all of that, which am I personally going to use after all of that research and testing? Which am I going to install in my current van build? To me, I value being able to charge numerous brands of power stations, so I like the Bluetti. I am super forgetful, so I just feel like the EcoFlow would be dangerous for me because if I forget to turn it off one time, it could be a nightmare. But I do already own a pretty large DJI, so I could just make that my specific power station for my camper van and dedicate it to that purpose. That way I could have that automatic bi-directional car battery charging. And if I got the solar charging version for just $20 more, I could connect my solar automatically since I don't want to go crazy on the alternator charging speeds all the time. So basically what I've come to in my brain is that if I didn't already have the full Red Arc electrical system in the back of my van that's already pulling 1 kilowatt hour that I'm going to have to unplug and plug and switch back and forth, I'd probably go with the DJI, but I do already have that. So because of that, I want to be able to charge all different sizes of power stations and different brands. So I think I'm going to go with the Bluetti overall. That way I'm not stuck with just that one power station based on today's choice for the fast car charger. But that's just my personal circumstances, so I think absolutely look at your own situation and your own circumstances and figure out what works best for your lifestyle. So now it is your turn. Please rank them in the comments 1 to 5. What do you think? What's your opinions? Let me know. I am sure we are about to have some really good discussions in the comments section, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. I did that once to a lunch lady when I was in middle school, and I got detention. Anyway, that was 3rd grade trauma I decided to bring up there.